is a bit of a look at Far Cry Primal. So Far Cry Primal came out this week with a bit of a mixed reception, I think. Um, there's been quite a few sort of interesting allegations coming out about the game since it got launched. The one that sort of caught my eye and that I thought was quite interesting was that the fact that Far Cry Primal, apparently, some people are speculating, saying that it wasn't actually meant to be a full sort of $60 full AAA title, and it was actually meant to be more like Blood Dragon was, and they released that last year. But apparently, because Assassin's Creed wasn't having a full title release this year, they wanted to release a full price game, that decision ended up being with Far Cry Primal coming out as one of the sort of the lead platforms games this year. And there's a couple of reasons for it. So a couple of the reasons for the rumor. So one of them, they never really mentioned about the game at E3, and they only sort of briefly mentioned about it once it was leaked, and it was all very quick, and there was no sort of big PR stunt before it. Especially not like Far Cry 3 or 4. I mean, it's a potentially a valid argument, but as well, like Fallout 4 wasn't announced till 5 months before it came out, so maybe not. The development cycle as well is almost identical to Blood Dragons, so I think it's a bit longer. But apart from that, they started working on it at the same time that they started working on Blood Dragon, which could suggest some similarities with it. Alongside that, it's a new setting with the game, which actually has less in it than the other sort of games do. They've stripped out a lot of the mechanics, sort of guns and cars, expectingly, and they've replaced it with a lot of, being back in the Stone Age now, a lot of the weapons are very limited with how everything works. And that's mainly it, really. So, Brian, have you played many of the Far Cry games? Have you enjoyed them?
Yeah. So I'm like a hipster on that one because I remember playing the original, and I even really loved Far Cry 2, which I think is like massively underrated. It had like the best level editor of like most FPS games.
The one where you have malaria.
But no, yeah, the one where you have malaria. So you're making it sound stupid. It's not that stupid. Okay, it was cool at the time, all right? At the time, oh man, I guess it was a long time ago it came out. But anyway, yeah, so I mean, I've kind of had my fair experience with Far Cry, and I'm actually quite looking forward to getting my hands on Primal and playing it. Because I don't know, sometimes I just enjoy those kind of sit down, stupid, dumb Ubisoft games where, I'm gonna do the same thing I've done about 50 times before. Sometimes, you just need that. Just need it.
I guess.
So
Have you so you haven't picked up Far Cry Primal yet? Because I played a bit of it, and I know from like the first impression, you start off and it's like, oh, okay, you kick off, there's like some cool cutscenes, and then basically you have to just constantly gather stuff like throughout the game. So you have to make each arrow individually. You don't have cars, moving around pretty slow. But yeah, I mean, from a game development perspective, Lucas, what are the chances? Do you think that they may have started this as a smaller title and just like sort of tried to flush it out? Does it scream that to you, or do you think that's an assumption that no one can really make?
I mean, in some ways, I don't even know if it matters, because it depends on how it would have been felt and it affected the end product. Contextually, I sort of feel like they've deliberately, they have obviously stripped things back, but I also think contextually that makes sense. So, for example, you wouldn't have a way of driving because there's no cars and primary. You wouldn't have. You have a very stripped down thing of weapons and crafting because again it's the Stone Age. And so yes, and I think from the marketing side perspective, I can sort of see they may have decided to change their mind on that. Perhaps when they realised either that the game might be more popular than they thought, so maybe they thought they were taking a risk of doing this spin-off and thought, okay, maybe actually they need to do that, but again, maybe they found out that actually there's more market demand for it than they thought, so they thought, okay, let's make it a full price thing and let's charge more money. But yeah, from the development side, Far Cry is sort of Far Cry. Like, I mean, that's the key difference I would say from Blood Dragon to Primal was the fact that the Blood Dragon is quite a linear experience. Actually, it's very much more set play, set level thing, whereas Primal's open world. So, you know, unless they sort of had that similar thing and then changed their minds later, you know, that would suggest to me that they've always thought of it as a grander, more normal Ubisoft experience.
Because I think the thing for me is if they get rid of cars, they get rid of like the amount of limitation. They restrict weapons more. But in that case, I feel like they should be adding in something different. So if you're going to take out cars, you're going to take out something else. You need to add in like something quite a bit, you know, something to patch up the differences. I mean, they've got animals in there.
Exactly, and you can like possess them.
But I mean, what's that missing feature? I mean, again, the contextualization of the game sort of limits it, and it depends how realistic you're going. Because you know, I can easily understand again that the thing of cars, but then again, that's me. You know, from a design perspective, I'd be like, actually, let's tone down the world size. And you need it to be quite so big. Let's make it actually you can traverse, you know, across the map in 5 minutes rather than maybe 5 hours or something. Yeah, I haven't seen the size, but you know, I think if you're doing Far Cry 3, for example, that'd be a ridiculous walk. But
I like it that you brought up the map size. So there was a couple of publications this week that published a map. So if you look now, basically for Far Cry 4 to Far Cry Primal, it looks like they very much copied the map and sort of just raised some elevation around and down a bit. And I mean, they've done it by looking at the locations of the water, and to be honest, it does look pretty identical, I think.
Yep.
But I mean, I think as a thing on its own, it's not really that bad, because I don't think if you're running around the environment, I reckon they've changed it enough that you wouldn't really notice any of this stuff, or notice like it is the same map. And everyone I've spoken to who's played it definitely didn't realise it was. But it just raises that question and sort of plants a bit more doubt about like the originality of like the whole game, and of is it just a rushed out mess of everything.
I think the thing again for me is I really don't, I don't have the issue of people reusing assets and reusing their work as long as they do something interesting with it. And that's the thing I actually really like, or that's why I'm quite happy to give Far Cry Primal a bit of credit, is they've actually taken their mechanics and gone and done something in a different direction. It's not, say, the difference between 3 and 4, where, well, I played 3, got bored. I enjoyed it enough, but I got bored in about 5-10 hours, and 4 seemed exactly the same. And that's why again I quite liked actually looking at Blood Dragon again, because that actually looked like an original, take on their gameplay mechanics, but they've managed to make enough of a unique experience out of it, and Primal feels the same.
Yeah, I mean that's definitely a fair argument. But I find myself going back on the thing, even though I want to play Primal, I'm kind of well aware that it's going to be very similar to 3 and 4, despite the kind of cosmetic changes and the things like not being able to drive around. Because the fact is that it's relying on the same Ubisoft model that they've been using for, about 80% of their games, including Assassin's Creed and Watch Dogs and everything else, except for the kind of random little indie title like Child of Light or something like that. Is that, the climbing the radio towers, the hunting to gather pouches for your numerous random crappy arrow things
for
or
your
whatever.
Rocks now.
Yeah, yes, your brilliant rocks, and like I don't know, I guess pouches were a thing in Primal times. That's fine.
I guess they they shot themselves in the foot a bit by developing the bow mechanics already in like the last 2 games, because like. They could have that could have been the one thing they pushed out a bit with Primal, but they've already done bows like a lot.
That's true. That's true. Yeah.
But I think the thing for me though is I think what I really see as the value and the thing of interest is the fact you are and what I'm really interested in seeing, especially from the AI and the programmer designer point of view, is actually seeing how they do the animal battles. Or the animal behavior, and I think that's something where I just feel like I don't think there's a game that does a really good, or I've seen a game that has really good animal AI. I think that could be a really cool feature, a unique feature to Far Cry Primal. And I've heard very good things about that. So again, there's that feeling of actually, I don't know if I could play that elsewhere at this point. I do feel I could play, a copy of Far Cry 3, in another shooter somewhere, or Far Cry 4, Assassin's Creed in some fashion, whatever else. I don't think I know of the game where I can say, I can play or use animals, enjoy animals in such the same fashion that Far Cry Primal would potentially offer.
Yeah, that's a good point. I would happily play a properly good dog simulator, because Nintendogs was not good enough, frankly. And I played that a little bit.
Well, whatever fetishes you have, like.
Whoa!
Let's just keep it about the game, like. Darko6977 has mentioned that he doesn't like the lack of explosions in the game.
That's a fair point.
Which I guess compared to Just Cause 3, like, didn't
you probably you could probably whack, hit two rocks together and make a few sparks, but
didn't cavemen just like burn down complete forests in order to like flatten out the land as well? Didn't they do that? That's a thing that happened, I think.
I think I came much later.
It does have fire as well, so I don't know. I assume that in the game you can do a fair bit of the fire stuff. But it's not an explosion, is it? Let's be honest.
I remember.
So I can see his point.
Burning the weed farms in Far Cry 3, and
yeah, I think everyone remembers that.
Skrillex and stuff. That was fun. More of that. There's none of that
brilliant.
in Primal. Like nothing like that, is there? Really, it's very different to the others. Like, and one of the questions was just you, Ryan. So Ryan, I imagine you've like written some game reviews in your life.
Yeah, just a few.
Just a few, yeah. So if you're a journalist, right, and you've played like Far Cry 3. And then they released like Far Cry 4 the next year, which is still like the same, but it's a good game, but it's very much the same. Like, how do you go about reviewing that? So say if a developer releases a very similar game that's almost at the same bar, but it's obscenely similar to the previous game. How do you go, or how would you give that a score?
So the interesting thing is that often this kind of thing goes by publication as opposed to by the journalists. So some publications will essentially tell you that each game you're reviewing is set within itself. It's an individual purchase that someone is making, irrespective of what the purchases they've made in the past. But I mean, my personal view is that's not really the ideal way to go, because the fact is that people that have played Far Cry Primal have probably played the previous ones, or at least seen them, know they exist. So you got to look at it in terms of the previous games, and that's the reason why Primal's had such a mixed or a cold response, is that it's so similar that reviewers and people are just a bit tired of that kind of system. No matter how much they change the skins, no matter how much they change elements like vehicles and animals, it's going to be the same kind of idea, and they know that. They're happy with that. Ubisoft are going to make money out of that.
Yeah,
I'm sure they've already made plenty back on their investment in it, and I'm going to buy it, and I know it's going to be stupid and the same. So maybe that just gives a big indication of the audience right there, is people that are aware of its terrible familiarity, but people that are happy to stick with it because it's still kind of fun.
And I don't really like to be dictated what to buy by reviews and by journalists. Ugh.
I wish I could say that, but
it's true. Yeah. And it's getting, so Far Cry Primal on PC at the moment, it's getting a 75 on Metacritic, which is a pretty good score. Probably do better if the previous games didn't exist, but
definitely true.
Definitely. Yeah. So there you